Many people try to understand themselves through thought alone. They journal, they analyse, they name the pattern, and yet the pattern returns. Because what shapes us most is rarely fully conscious. It does not speak in arguments, it speaks in images. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious communicates symbolically, not to confuse us, but to compensate for what consciousness refuses to see. That is why inner work often feels abstract. You sense something, tension, avoidance, a familiar reaction, but you cannot hold it in your mind clearly enough to understand it. So today I want to offer a simple Jungian idea, not a promise, not a cure, a method of listening, a way to make the unconscious visible without turning it into superstition and without forcing a single correct meaning. Jung called one approach active imagination. At its core, active imagination is not about inventing fantasies. It is about allowing an inner image to form and then treating it as a psychological reality. Not literal, psychological. Here is the key distinction. When Jung spoke about the shadow, he did not mean evil. He meant the parts of the personality that remain unseen because they were inconvenient, unacceptable, or simply ignored. And what remains unseen tends to act indirectly, through mood, through sabotage, through repeated conflicts, through recurring dreams, through the same emotional loop in different situations. So how do we approach it? Not by forcing a meaning onto it, but by giving it a form and then asking better questions. If you try this, do it when you have a quiet moment. No pressure, no expectation of a dramatic experience. Begin with something specific, a recurring emotional pattern. For example, the moment you hesitate to speak, the moment you over-explain, the moment you withdraw, the moment you feel a sudden wave of irritation that seems too large for the situation. Choose one moment, not your entire life. Then ask a simple question. If this feeling had an image, what would it look like? Don't search intellectually. Wait. Often an image appears that feels oddly not chosen. A colour, a place, a figure, a door, a landscape, a posture. And here is where people make a common mistake. They try to interpret the symbol like a dictionary. But Jung insisted that symbols are personal first, even if they can carry universal themes. So you do not ask, what does a door mean on the internet? You ask, what does this door mean to me? What does it protect? What does it separate? What does it invite? What does it forbid? And then you go one step further. You allow a dialogue, not with words, but with attention. If the image is a place, you enter it. If the image is a figure, you let it speak, not as a spirit, but as a psychological voice. Not because it is true in a factual sense, but because it reveals something true about your inner structure. For instance, you might see a figure standing in the distance. You notice your reaction: curiosity, fear, contempt, shame. That reaction is already information. In Jungian terms, the shadow often appears with the emotional tone of rejection. We do not dislike it because it is meaningless. We dislike it because it is close. So the method is not to defeat the image. It is to observe what it activates. You can ask 3 questions that keep this grounded. First, what feeling is this image carrying for me? Not what it should mean, what it actually carries. Second, where does this feeling appear in my daily life? Not in theory, in concrete moments. Third, what would change if I stopped resisting this feeling for a moment? Not indulging it, not acting it out, just stopping the reflex to push it away. This is the shift from abstraction to visibility. When the unconscious becomes visible, something subtle happens. You stop being possessed by the pattern, and you begin to recognize it, not as an enemy, as a signal. Now, a brief warning, because this matters. Active imagination is not about making yourself believe a story. It is about meeting the psyche with honesty. If you try to force beautiful images, you get performance. If you try to force quick transformation, you get disappointment. But if you return to the same inner image across days, quietly, you may notice patterns. Certain colours repeating, certain places returning, the same figure always silent, the same door never opened. And that repetition is often the point. In Jung's view, the unconscious repeats itself the way a dream repeats itself, because something essential remains unintegrated. Integration does not mean I fixed it. It means I can hold it in awareness. I can see it. I am less compelled to enact it blindly. So if you have been doing inner work for a long time and still feel stuck, it may not be because you lack insight. It may be because your insight remains verbal, while your pattern lives in images. And the psyche speaks most naturally through symbol. Not to mystify you, but to make you whole, slowly, honestly, and without theatrics. If a certain image returned in your mind while listening, a place, a figure, a colour, hold it gently, not as an answer, as a beginning.